The Crazy Princess. In a distant land and a time long past, the events of this extraordinary tale unfolded, a story passed down through generations. Come, let us delve into what happened in one of the ancient kingdoms. At that time, the kingdom stood strong and proud, its glory firmly established. It was ruled by great kings, majestic and revered, who inherited its throne across generations. They governed with justice and wisdom, ensuring peace and prosperity for their people, villages, and neighboring lands. But things changed when King Zaydan ascended the throne, succeeding his father, King Hassan, after his passing. King Zaydan began his reign following the ways of his ancestors, upholding their traditions. However, life did not turn out as he had hoped, for he lost his beloved queen, who left him with only one daughter. That daughter was the joy of his heart, the treasure of his life. Her name was Shahd, and the beauty of her name was but a reflection of her radiant appearance. Her charm surpassed even the splendor of a full moon, shining at its brightest and most complete. The princess lived in peace within her father's palace, surrounded by his love and care. He raised her well and nurtured her with the utmost discipline. He brought teachers from across the kingdoms to educate and enlighten her in various sciences and arts. He also sent her on journeys, allowing her to travel across distant lands. She witnessed wonders, heard strange tales, and learned something new with each adventure. However, the king was deeply devoted to his only daughter, the one whom fate had granted him and none other. He indulged her with boundless care and affection, never delaying a request nor denying her any desire or wish. Over the years, the king never realized that Princess Shahd had developed a deep love for adventure. She constantly sought out the new and the strange and collected them. She gathered rare artifacts from across the lands. Whenever she heard of something extraordinary or unique, she would immediately ask her father for it, and without hesitation, he would send envoys to fetch it at once. Thus, she came to possess wonders of the world, beyond belief. A miniature elephant, no larger than a rabbit, brought from the jungles of India. A living scarab, its body shimmering like diamonds, retrieved from the caves of the Ivory Coast. And her most marvelous doll, one that could speak every language, recite poetry, and even bow in respect before the king and princess. It was a masterpiece in design and a marvel in craftsmanship. And beyond these, countless other astonishing treasures, wonders of the world, and the most exquisite of creations. And so, the princess grew until she blossomed into the prime of youth. Her character remained pure, her manners graceful. Yet there was but one flaw that marred her perfection. It may have seemed insignificant, but the greatest fires often start from the smallest sparks, and the gravest dangers may creep upon us from what we assume to be harmless. Princess Shahd could not bear to desire something without obtaining it. No matter how difficult, distant, or seemingly impossible it was to acquire. Her father encouraged this, believing it would broaden her horizons and grant her greater knowledge and wisdom. One morning, Princess Shahd woke up, yawning lazily. She gazed around her with a sense of boredom. There was nothing new or unusual to excite her curiosity or set her on a new quest. She had grown weary of all her treasures. Even though they were wonders and rarities, they no longer amazed her nor captivated her mind. The princess called for her dearest handmaiden, Karima, whom she loved as if she were her own sister, and whose company was essential to her joy. At once, Karima rushed to answer her mistress's call, exclaiming, "Good morning, my lady. Shall I prepare your breakfast?" Shahd replied with frustration, "No, Karima. Instead, order the guards to prepare my horse, for I feel restless and wish to wander through the palace gardens." The handmaiden replied gently, "As you wish, my lady." She hurried to fulfill her mistress's request, and within minutes the dapple gray horse, adorned with jewels and precious stones, stood ready, awaiting the princess. Shahd quickly dressed and stepped out into the gardens, accompanied by her beloved handmaiden, Karima. As they wandered through the lush gardens, they were surrounded by flowers and fruits of every shape and color. Birds fluttered around them, singing joyfully, as if celebrating the princess's presence. Eventually, they settled under the shade of a leafy tree. But as they sat, Shahd drifted into silence, lost in thought, her expression clouded with sadness. Noticing her distress, Karima asked, concerned, "What troubles you, my lady? Will you not share your thoughts with me?" The princess sighed and replied, "There is nothing that troubles me, and that is precisely what makes me feel restless and weary." Karima looked at her in astonishment, then asked, "What do you desire, my lady? Ask for anything you wish, and we shall bring it to you, even if it lies in the belly of a whale, in the heart of the sea, or in the seventh earth." The princess sighed sadly and said, "I have grown weary of everything I own. I long for something new, something strange that will bring me joy and fill my heart with delight." Karima quickly responded, "Have you forgotten, my lady, that your birthday is in a few days? We will hold grand celebrations, and your father, the king, has promised to gift you something that your hands have never touched before." For a brief moment, the princess's eyes sparkled with curiosity, but then she said, "I wonder what that might be, Karima, and where did my father get it from? No caravan has arrived in a long time, and there is no treasure in my father's possession that I do not already know of. I doubt it will be anything truly astonishing for me." The princess sank back into her gloom, then lifted her head to gaze at the birds flitting between the branches with playful energy and vitality. Her eyes were drawn to a small bird with beautifully colored feathers. It fluttered closer to her with effortless grace, then suddenly snatched her silk handkerchief with its beak and soared into the sky. It spiraled higher and higher, twirling playfully until it disappeared from sight. After a few moments, the little bird returned and dropped the handkerchief gently into her hands. The princess picked it up, her face lighting up with a wide smile as she exclaimed, "Look, Karima, my handkerchief rose to the heart of the sky, and then it came back to me. Oh, how I wish I were small enough to sit inside it, or that I were like that colorful bird, soaring through the skies, flying far and wide, seeing everything from above. I wonder, how does the palace look from the sky, or the city, the forest, and everything beyond?" The princess leaped with joy, stretching her arms as if they were the wings of a little bird. Then she began to run and jump happily, calling out, "Oh, how I wish I were a bird! If only I could fly! Yes, this is what I want. I want to rise into the air, to flutter my wings like the birds, to soar wherever I please. I will glide over forests and cliffs, cross the mountain peaks, and sweep over vast seas." Karima followed her, staring at her in astonishment and saying in confusion, "What did you just say, my lady?" The princess repeated her words with overwhelming joy. "I want to fly, Karima. This is the dream that will bring me happiness. To soar like a bird, to rise lightly, to flutter in the air, and to see the world from above." But Karima, with a look of astonishment on her face, gently said, "But, my lady, this is impossible. Birds were created to fly, whereas humans walk on the ground. This is the way of God's creation, and we have never heard of a human who has flown in the air before." The princess interrupted her enthusiastically. "Please, Karima, don't say that. I must fly, and I will not be at peace until I make this beautiful dream come true." The king heard of his daughter's desire and was utterly astonished. After taking a moment to comprehend the matter, he summoned his minister to consult him on a solution. When the minister arrived, equally bewildered, he said to the king, "How can we make Princess Shahd fly like a bird, my lord? This is impossible. Never in the past have we heard of a human soaring through the air. However, I have learned that the princess is deeply determined to fulfill her wish, and she's extremely sad. She neither eats nor sleeps until she achieves what she longs for." The king replied sorrowfully, "I had asked her to wish for anything she desired, and I swore to bring it to her immediately. But she refused everything except to fulfill her impossible dream. Now I feel that I have spoiled her too much and indulged her every demand, day after day. I thought that by doing so, I was broadening her horizons and preparing her for the day she would rule the kingdom after my passing. But what do I do now? I love her dearly, and I cannot bear to see her so sad and fragile as she is now." The minister thought for a moment, then cautiously said, "Then, my lord, I suggest that we announce a grand competition and offer a great reward to anyone who can fulfill the princess's wish." The king interrupted him cautiously. but it is an impossible wish to fulfill." The minister replied confidently, "Let us try, my lord. When the princess sees that all our efforts have failed, she will realize that what she desires is impossible to achieve. At that point, she will forget this strange wish, and her sadness will completely fade away." The king paused for a moment, contemplating the minister's words, then said, "Perhaps you are right. Let us announce the competition and see what happens." And in the early morning, the king's palace was bustling with movement and activity. People gathered from everywhere, coming from different trades and crafts, all carrying great hope in fulfilling Princess Shahd's wish. Amidst this crowd, there was a skilled leather craftsman who came up with a new idea. He brought with him a pair of wings made from fine leather and explained to the minister how the princess could wear them and jump from a high place to fly with them. However, when the minister ordered one of the guards to test the wings, things did not go as planned. The guard fell violently, his bones shattered before everyone's eyes. The scene was shocking, yet the others did not lose hope. Among the crowd, another person stepped forward with wings made of meticulously arranged feathers, insisting that this idea would succeed. However, the result was not much different from the previous attempt. The second guard met the same fate as the first. Despite the repeated failures, the hopeful participants continued presenting their ideas. Among them was a distinguished spiritual healer who claimed to have studied the arts of hypnotism in the peaks of the Nabat Mountains. The healer stood before the princess, attempting to influence her with his mysterious rituals, hoping to make her believe that she was flying and soaring like a bird. However, despite the brilliance of his performance, he achieved nothing of significance. Attempts continued from various craftsmen and scholars, all of whom had come in hopes of winning the grand prize and seeking to please the princess and earn the king's favor. However, with each failed attempt, disappointment began to creep into everyone's hearts. By the end of the day, the princess felt a deep sadness. She realized that the wish she had held onto so dearly was far too great to be fulfilled. Quietly, she withdrew from the hall, her eyes brimming with tears. She rushed to her chamber, sobbing bitterly, leaving behind the king and the minister, both lost in their confusion. The scene was filled with helplessness and sorrow, as if the princess's dream had vanished into thin air. Suddenly, the princess heard a strange sound coming from her window. She approached cautiously, and when she looked, she saw a dark-colored bird tapping on the glass with its beak while fluttering its wings at an astonishing speed. She slowly opened the window, and at once the bird flew inside, soaring around the room, beating the air with its wings as if searching for something. Then, in a sudden swift motion, the bird flapped its wings powerfully, and before her astonished eyes, it transformed into a terrifying genie. The princess let out a scream of sheer terror and fell to the ground. With a voice trembling between shock and fear, she asked, "Who are you?" The genie answered in a deep, thunderous voice, "I am the genie of impossible dreams. I only appear when someone wishes for something that cannot be achieved by ordinary means." The princess tried to gather her courage and asked in a faint voice, "And what do you want from me?" The genie quickly replied, "It is you who wants me to make your impossible dream come true." The princess stood up, enchanted by his words, and asked eagerly, "Do you mean that you can really make me fly?" The genie smiled and replied, "Yes, I can make you as light as a little bird. You will soar through the sky and beat the air with your wings just like the birds do." Then, in a soft and alluring voice, he added, "And you will delight in seeing the world from above. You will gaze upon houses and fields as if they were pieces of candy, and the animals will appear as tiny as ants. Everything will be breathtakingly beautiful, in a way that surpasses anything your imagination could ever conjure or dream of." The door of the room slowly creaked open, and Karima, the handmaiden, stepped inside. The moment her eyes fell upon the genie, she let out a terrified scream, her hands trembling visibly. Princess Shahd hurried to calm her, speaking in a gentle and reassuring voice. "Calm down, Karima. He is the genie of impossible dreams. He has come to make my dream come true." But Karima was not easily convinced. With a trembling voice and eyes filled with fear, she said, "He looks terrifying. He must be an evil genie. Begone, genie. We want nothing from you. Take your wickedness and cursed magic away from us." The princess quickly interrupted her with a pleading tone. "Wait, Karima, I want him to make my dream come true." At that moment, the genie gave a formidable smile, and his thunderous voice echoed through the room as he said, "I will make your dream come true, but in exchange for just one thing." The princess asked eagerly, her eyes fixed on him with passion, "And what is it?" The genie replied in a calm tone, yet one that carried an unmistakable hint of cunning, "I want your father's crown, nothing more, nothing less." The princess's face filled with shock, and she exclaimed with clear distress, "But that's impossible. That crown is my father's legacy, passed down from his ancestors since ancient times. He never takes it off and would never replace it, no matter how much more beautiful or valuable another crown might be. I have jewels worth the weight of a man. Take them all, but grant me my wish." But the genie interrupted her firmly, his voice growing sharper. "I desire nothing but the crown. If you do not bring it to me, your wish will never come true. Think carefully. If you accept this bargain, I will be waiting for you every night at exactly midnight by the red rock in the heart of the Black Forest, where my dark kingdom lies. If you come with the king's crown, your wish will be granted instantly." Then, in a sudden flash, the genie let out a terrifying laugh that shook the very walls of the room. In the blink of an eye, he transformed into a hideous-looking bird, flapping his thick wings before darting out through the window, vanishing into the darkness of the night. "Do not believe him, my lady," Karima cried as she hastily shut the window, adding in a trembling voice, "He is a cunning genie, just a trick to seize the crown of my lord, the king." But the princess did not answer. She lay quietly on her bed, her thoughts drifting far away. The genie's words echoed in her mind relentlessly. She imagined the vast sky. What would it feel like to fly? To soar through the heavens, crossing from east to west, from north to south. To ride the winds, defying the clouds, painting a mesmerizing journey across the sky. "This is my wish. It is so close to coming true. But how? What should I do in the face of this strange condition the genie has set?" The princess sank into a whirlwind of thoughts, torn between her passion for fulfilling her dream and the fear of the heavy price she might have to pay. Days passed, and the king gradually forgot his daughter's strange wish, which had seemed impossible. As for the princess, she stopped asking for it and sank into silence and deep thought. The king assumed that she had abandoned her dream and accepted that it was unattainable. On the day of Princess Shahd's birthday celebration, the city was adorned with flags and twinkling lights, and the palace was filled with decorations and joy. It was a special day, the day when the king bestowed gifts and grants, feasts were held, and happiness spread throughout the kingdom. As the grand celebration in the palace hall neared its end, the king approached his daughter and lovingly kissed her forehead. Then, with a warm smile, he said, "Don't you want to see your gift now?" The princess smiled with joy and followed her father to a small, secluded room. The king shut the doors behind them after dismissing the courtiers and servants. Then, with a serious tone, he said, "Now, my daughter, as you have reached your 15th year, it is time for me to reveal to you a secret of the kingdom." The princess looked at him in astonishment and said, "A secret? Does our kingdom have hidden secrets that I have never known before?" The king nodded affirmatively and said, "Yes, my little one, it is the secret of the crown." He carefully held his jewel-encrusted crown and lifted it, saying, "This crown is not merely an ornament. It is the greatest treasure of our kingdom. It was crafted long ago by a powerful genie for our greatest ancestor. Thanks to its power, our forefather was able to defeat his enemies, establish this great kingdom, and rule its people with justice and diligence to ensure their prosperity and happiness." He paused briefly, then continued in a lowered voice. "But that genie later tried to interfere in the affairs of the kingdom. He sought to spread oppression and tyranny among the people, but your grandfather confronted him. Using the power of the crown, he banished the genie to a distant place deep within the terrifying Black Forest. Since then, the crown has been passed down from father to son, and no one can touch it unless the blood of our ancestor runs through their veins. If an outsider dares to lay a hand on it, they will perish instantly." The king continued with a voice full of warmth. "This crown has been passed down from generation to generation until it came to me after the death of my father, King Hassan. May he rest in peace. And since I have not been blessed with a son, you are the only one who carries our blood. The crown belongs to you, Shahd." The princess gazed at the crown in awe, admiring the strange engravings and the dazzling jewels adorning it. The king spoke gently. "I know this responsibility is heavy upon you, but I have no choice but to leave the crown in your hands. I am embarking on a journey that may take a long time, and I fear that something might happen to me while I am away. In that case, you must protect the crown, for it is the symbol of our kingdom's strength." The princess smiled gently and said, "Do not worry, father. You will return to us safely, God willing." As soon as she touched the crown, a green gemstone shimmered with a mesmerizing glow. She gasped in astonishment, while the king smiled with pride and said, "I pray to God that you will be a just and righteous queen, like your ancestors before you." Then he added seriously, "Remember, my daughter, the crown can only be lost under one condition." The princess asked anxiously, "And what is that condition, father?" The king warned her, "If you willingly give it away to someone else. In that case, the crown will not harm them. Instead, it will serve them. They will become the ruler of the land, and no one will be able to challenge their reign." A sense of unease crept into the princess's heart. She carefully tucked the crown among her clothes, concealing it beneath her embroidered silk shawl. Then she retreated to her chamber, where she sat alone, gazing at the crown in awe, lost in deep thought about all she had just learned. Days passed, and the king departed on his long journey, leaving the affairs of the kingdom in the hands of the minister, who managed them with efficiency and loyalty. As for the princess, she carefully hid the enchanted crown among her clothes, revealing its secret to no one except her faithful maid, Karima. The princess spent long hours in the palace garden, watching the birds soar high in the sky. As she gazed at the horizon, she became lost in deep thoughts, wondering how she could fulfill her dream without having to part with her father's precious crown. Karima noticed the princess's absent-minded state and felt sorrow seeing her like this. She gently approached and said, "My lady, why don't we visit the old seer Fatima? She might have some advice that could help you find the solution you're searching for." The princess stopped her contemplation and looked at Karima, considering her words. After a few moments of silence, she sighed and said, "Perhaps you are right, Karima. Let's try. Maybe the seer will guide me to something I have overlooked." In the early morning of the following day, the princess and her maid, Karima, set off on their journey toward the Cave of Destinies, where the old seer Fatima resided. As they approached the entrance of the cave, Karima turned to the princess and spoke in a calm but warning tone. "My lady, you must know that the seer is neither entirely good nor entirely evil. She is a mixture of both, and personally, I do not trust those who blend the two. Goodness, like pure water, can be tainted by even a single drop of evil. That is why I beg you, listen carefully to what the seer says, but do not follow everything she asks of you." The princess looked at Karima with a reassuring smile and replied in a gentle voice, "Do not worry, Karima. I am only seeking to understand what she will reveal to me through her crystal ball. Perhaps in her words, I will find something that helps me unravel the mystery I have been pondering." They entered the cave and found the seer sitting at its far end. She was gazing into her enchanted crystal ball, and without turning to look at them, she spoke in a calm and mysterious voice, "Enter, sit down." Then she looked at the princess and said, "You were right, Karima. I am neither entirely good nor entirely evil. The goodness in my heart is tainted by a small seed of darkness, and that is the price I paid to become a seer." She fixed her sharp gaze on the princess and continued, "Everything has a price, does it not, Shahd, daughter of kings? So, what is it that you seek to learn from my enchanted crystal?" The princess hesitated for a moment before answering, "I want to know how my wishes can come true." The sorceress chuckled lightly as she murmured mysterious incantations, then said, The princess, draped in gold and silk, wishes to fly. Such a request is difficult, and fate cannot be escaped. But know this, many years from now, your descendants will soar through the skies without magic, relying only on diligence and intellect. As for now, there is no way to achieve this, except through a bargain with the jinn. And there is only one choice, but it may cost you the most precious thing you own, or force you to betray the loyalty of those closest to you. The princess's eyes sparkled, and she asked eagerly, "And how is that, O sorceress?" The sorceress smirked cunningly and said, "Through deception, my dear beauty. Listen carefully to my words, for what no one else can touch, your hands can grasp. Those who see it may think it has an end, but it is merely an illusion. The one who fulfills the dreams of the fair maiden shall uncover the secret, and then you shall have what you desire, and what was once impossible will lie within your grasp." The princess cried out with joy, "Yes, I understand, but I have another question. Where is the red rock located? And where is the path to the Black Forest? I have traveled through all the forest with my father on hunting trips, yet I have never seen that forest before." The seer laughed and said, "Indeed, my lady, the Black Forest only reveals itself to those who seek it with true intent. If you set out with the purpose of finding it, you shall find it." The princess said excitedly, "Thank you, now I know what I must do." The Princess Shahd returned to the palace, with her maid Karima following behind, trying in vain to dissuade her from her plan. Karima said regretfully, "I made a mistake in allowing you to visit the seer." The princess replied with a smile, "On the contrary, you are the reason for my happiness, Karima. When I follow the seer's advice, my wish will come true without sacrificing the enchanted crown. Don't you understand? I will go to the genie with the crown and ask him to grant me the ability to fly, and once he does, I will soar high into the sky with the crown. Isn't it a brilliant idea?" Karima, filled with fear, said, "I will accompany you, my lady. Even if I do not agree with what you are doing, I cannot let you go alone." The princess, overjoyed, said, "Thank you, Karima. I believe it is best to leave when the moon is full, so it can light our path. We shall depart after midnight." Karima drifted into thought before murmuring, "That means we will leave in 2 or 3 nights. I just hope that will be enough." Karima departed, leaving the princess lost in dreams of fulfilling her wish. She imagined herself soaring through the sky, embracing the clouds, grazing the treetops, then rising once more into the vast expanse of the heavens, reveling in her newfound freedom. And so 3 nights passed until the moon became full in the sky. As midnight approached, the princess secluded herself in her chamber. She opened her wardrobe and reached for the crown, but the green gemstone did not glow as it once had. Surprised by this, she concealed it within the folds of her garments and slipped out, hiding her face beneath her veil. She mounted her steed, with Karima behind her, fearful and whispering prayers without pause. They rode away from the palace, drawing closer to the forest, which loomed in the darkness like a vast, ominous jungle, despite the moonlight illuminating their path. Karima waved her hand toward the darkness and said, "Where are you going in this pitch-black night? And where could that black forest be? All forests look dark and eerie at night." The princess replied calmly, reassuring her, "Do not worry, Karima. We will not lose our way. Don't you remember what the seer said? She told us that those who set out with determination will be guided by their fate, and only they will find the path." But the princess did not finish her words, for suddenly a massive bird passed before them. Its eyes glowed red like torches as it flew eastward. The princess hesitated for a moment, then turned her horse toward the east, following the bird. After a few minutes, she spotted faint lights in the distance. She rode toward them until she drew near and found a small cottage. To her surprise, she saw the great bird pushing the door open with its beak and entering inside. The princess dismounted her horse, and behind her, Karima clung to her arm cautiously. She crept quietly until she reached the cottage and peeked through its open door. Inside, the massive bird perched on the shoulder of a thin, elderly man with an unusual appearance. He sat on the ground, watching glowing grasshoppers that moved slowly before him in silence. Suddenly, the man lifted his face, sensing the presence of the princess and her maid. They both shuddered at the sight of his eyes. They were red and glowing, just like the eyes of the black bird. In a frail voice, the man said, "Welcome. I am your guide in this land. What place do you seek?" The princess said, "We are searching for the Black Forest, and within it, we seek the Red Rock." The old man, who seemed as if he could not see them, asked, "What will you buy from there?" The princess answered in surprise, "I will buy nothing." He then said, "Then what will you sell?" Again she replied, "Nothing." With a puzzled expression, he asked, "Then why do you wish to go to the Black Forest?" "Only those who seek to trade precious things for cheap ones that harm more than they benefit dare to enter. What is it that you truly desire?" The princess hastily responded, "Just show me the way." The man smiled and said, "Our desires blind us to the truth. I am a living example of this. I am blind and see nothing in this world but these insignificant fireflies. This is my punishment from long ago, to be deprived of sight forever, despite the glow in my eyes. Just as human insight can reveal mistakes, yet one may rush into them like the blind, only to spend a lifetime in regret and sorrow. What use is it for my eyes to glow if I remain blind? Think carefully, princess. Do you truly wish to go to the Black Forest?" She replied impatiently, "Yes, so please show me the way, because I want to reach it before dawn breaks." The old man laughed and said, "Do you think it is far? Did you see the old well on your way to my cottage?" She quickly replied, "Yes, I saw it, but what does it have to do with me?" The man spoke sorrowfully, "That is the way. Go back to the well and tie your horse to its bucket. Then sit inside it. It is large enough. And lower yourself down to its depths. Once you reach the bottom, you will find the path to the Black Forest." After finishing his words, he turned his gaze back to the glowing grasshoppers and whispered to them, "I miss seeing you, you ugly creatures. How I hate looking at you, yet I cannot stay away from you. You are my fate until the end of my days." Then the man began to weep and sob. The princess stepped forward with confident strides, followed closely by Karima, who was trembling as she spoke anxiously. "And now what, my lady? Are you really going to descend into the well? This is madness. You are putting your life in danger. We must turn back immediately." But the princess did not respond. She advanced steadily toward the well and tied her horse to the bucket's rope, just as the guide had instructed. Then she looked at Karima and said firmly, "I do not know what awaits me down there, but you do not have to come with me. You can wait here until I return." Karima cried out, her eyes filled with both fear and love. "Impossible. You know I will never leave you alone. I fear for you more than I fear for myself. Let me go down instead of you. Wait for me here. If I do not return, leave the forest." The princess replied with a voice filled with both courage and tenderness, "You are the most precious gift time has given me, Karima, but I will not let you risk your life for me. This is my adventure, and I will face it alone." She jumped into the bucket without hesitation, but Karima, unable to bear the thought of staying behind, quickly followed and leaped in after her. The bucket descended rapidly, plunging deep into the darkness, covering long distances in mere moments. As they clung to each other for protection, their breaths grew heavy and strained. Suddenly, the bucket hit the ground with a jarring impact. They slowly and cautiously got to their feet, their breath still rapid. As they looked around, the sight before them took them by surprise. They were in a dark forest beneath the surface of the earth. The trees and rocks around them were as black as coal, as if the darkness itself was swallowing everything in sight. They gazed at the eerie scene in astonishment before their feet began to move hesitantly. Everything felt unsettling. The paths looked identical, and the darkness was suffocating. It was as if they had stepped into an entirely different world, far removed from the one they had left behind. Karima whispered in deep fear, "My lady, let's turn back. Even my legs can barely hold me from sheer terror." As she spoke, she suddenly let out a muffled scream, pointing ahead with a trembling hand, her eyes widening in horror. Shahd followed her gaze, only to be met with a terrifying sight. There, in front of them, stood a massive red boulder, glowing like a burning ember, as large as a great chamber. Surrounding it were dozens of flickering lanterns, their lights flaring and dimming in an eerie, irregular rhythm. The princess gasped in astonishment. That is the red rock. It's our destination. She moved forward with steady steps, gripping Karima's trembling hand. As they drew closer, the scene became clearer. The glowing blue lanterns were not lanterns at all, but the piercing eyes of enormous serpents coiling around the red rock. Yet, as the princess advanced, the serpents slithered aside, parting to form a silent path for her to pass through, leading straight to the rock. And as she neared, the red rock unveiled a formidable sight. A grotesque throne sat at its center, upon which a sinister djinn rested. To his right, the mouth of a well spewed flames into the air, tongues of fire licking the darkness. To his left stood a massive iron cage, packed with screeching black rats scurrying in frantic chaos. She was so overwhelmed by the sight that her feet froze in place. Suddenly, the genie's voice thundered like a storm. "Welcome, Princess Shahd. Your beauty has illuminated our dark forest. I have been eagerly awaiting you. It seems you have decided to accept our deal." The princess responded in a trembling voice, a mix of anxiety and dread. "Yes, I have brought you what you asked for, but you must grant me my one and only wish. After that, the crown will be yours." The genie let out a booming laugh that shook the entire place, then said mockingly, "And what is your wish, O beautiful princess?" Shahd answered seriously, suppressing her unease, "To make me capable of flying." "Have you forgotten our deal?" The genie laughed again, but this time his laughter was hollow and dripping with sarcasm. "And can a child of Adam fly like a bird, Princess Shahd?" She replied in a quiet, anxious voice. "I know that such a wish seems impossible to fulfill, but you said that you could make it happen and promised me that you would." The genie bared his sharp fangs and spoke in a rough voice. "A human should only dream of what can be achieved. But those who dream of the impossible and sacrifice their most precious possessions to attain it end up losing everything and gaining nothing." He pointed toward the cage and said, "Look at these rats. Each one of them was once a prince or a nobleman who craved something impossible or beyond their right. Instead of striving to achieve their dreams through hard work, they chose to bargain with me, and I ask for nothing but the most valuable of things. When they fail to uphold their end of the deal, this becomes their fate, mere filthy rats, never to see the light again." Then, turning toward the princess, he spoke in a mocking tone. "And as for you, you have traded your most precious possession for an illusion that dwells in your little head. Your dream will never come true, foolish princess." The princess screamed as she stepped back, fear evident in her voice. "So you've been deceiving me all this time?" The genie replied in a defiant, angry tone. "No, you deceived yourself and squandered your kingdom on your foolish illusions." The princess tightened her grip on the crown with both hands and said firmly, "But you cannot touch this crown, can you? Don't you know that?" The genie let out a terrifying, mocking laugh and said, "I knew that long before you were even born. This crown was crafted by my father for one of your ancestors. Your lifespans, you humans, barely last a few decades, while we live for hundreds of years. I know all the secrets of this crown, and I swore long ago that I would claim it. Your ancestors were wiser than you. They protected it well and evaded my traps. But you will lose everything." Then, turning sharply toward the handmaiden Karima, he seized her garments forcefully and shouted, "Either you hand me the crown now, or I will throw this lovely handmaiden into the fire and make her my feast tonight." The princess stood frozen in place, tears streaming down her cheeks in anguish. She looked at Karima, who was sobbing and trembling with fear. Then, slowly, she stepped toward the genie and extended her hand, offering him the crown. The genie lunged at the crown like a ravenous wolf, his voice thundering with exhilaration, shaking the very ground beneath them. "Finally, this is my day. I will rule the entire land, and I will leave this wretched forest. I will live in the palace, hoard gold and treasures in my vaults. I will destroy the homes of those miserable people and take my revenge for all the years I spent exiled, alone in the forest of darkness." The princess wept bitterly and cried out in a voice filled with sorrow. "Woe is me! What have I done? I have doomed my father and his kingdom, leaving my people to face a dark fate. I will be the cause of the curse that will haunt them forever, all because of my impossible dreams and foolish illusions. And now, here I am, condemned to isolation in this dark forest, weeping in regret for the day I wished for something that was never mine to wish for. And while she was drowning in her sorrow, a familiar voice pierced her ears. She turned around in shock to find her father, King Zaydan, approaching with his guards, their torches lighting up the dark forest. The princess looked at her father in terror, then screamed, "Run, father! It's the cursed Jinni. He has the crown and he will harm you." The Jinni laughed with arrogance and delight, then mockingly said, "Welcome, Zaydan. Will you not bow before your new king?" But the king shouted with unwavering determination, his voice defying the darkness. "Silence, you cursed creature! Your place is in the shadows, and in the shadows you shall remain forever." Then he raised his hands and touched the royal crown upon his head. In an instant, flames erupted around the Jinni, and he let out an agonizing scream, writhing in unbearable pain. Before long, he shrank into a filthy little rat, scurrying in terror and vanishing into the depths of the forest. Then, the king touched the crown once more, and in the blink of an eye, the imprisoned rats inside the cage transformed into strong men and mighty knights. They bowed before the king, kissing his hands and thanking him with deep gratitude for freeing them from the Jinni's curse. The princess looked around in confusion, then asked her father, "When did you arrive here, father, and how did you reach this place?" The king gave her a reassuring smile, then said, "I learned everything thanks to Karima. She sent me a message informing me of the danger you were facing. Immediately, I sent a messenger with a fake crown identical to the enchanted one, which I had kept for emergencies like this. I instructed Karima not to touch the enchanted crown, but to cover it with one of your garments and conceal it with the fake crown until I returned. When you handed over the fake crown, you believed it to be the real one. However, I went straight to your wardrobe and retrieved the enchanted crown before anyone could get their hands on it. If not for Karima's loyalty and love for you, we would all have been doomed, and the good people of our kingdom would have suffered under the wicked genie's tyranny. As for how I arrived here, that is a secret known to only a few. Behind the palace's back gate, there is an ancient well with a large bucket that leads to this dark forest. This secret passage can only be used by one who possesses the power of the crown. This was decreed by my grandfather, who had imprisoned the demon in this forest and sealed the well with a massive stone that only one with royal power could move. And now, my little one, have you learned the lesson about what impossible dreams can do to a person?" The princess lowered her head in shame. Her father stepped closer, gently placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder and saying, "My daughter, one should only dream of what can be achieved, and with hard work and effort, one must strive to turn those dreams into reality." Shahd looked at her father apologetically, then slowly raised her hands to touch the enchanted crown on his head. Suddenly, the green gemstone glowed brightly. She smiled and murmured, "Now I understand why the gem didn't shine when I hid the other crown in my clothes." The king explained, "These are signals the crown sends to guide the king. Now, let us return to the palace and seal the path to the dark forest, protecting our land from its dangers. I believe I can rest easy now, knowing that you will never let the crown slip from your grasp as long as you live, my daughter." And so the princess returned to the palace with her father, and everyone lived in peace and prosperity. A year later, King Zaydan passed away, and Shahd ascended the throne. She became a just and noble queen, loving her people and striving for their well-being. Karima never left her side, remaining her loyal friend until they both grew old together. Their sons became strong men, upholding the values of loyalty and courage. One day, Queen Shahd summoned her eldest son and revealed to him the secret of the enchanted crown. The moment he touched it with his hands, the purple gemstone glowed brightly, casting its light upon the forehead of the new king, heralding the beginning of a new era filled with hope and justice. And so, the kingdom's joy continued without end, as its rulers granted it justice and prosperity, and its people returned their love and loyalty in kind. And thus the tale came to an end.